But there is something problematic to me about a profit motive for imprisoning, shackling, detaining, and holding people. And this combination of that and a corporate reality where you are giving campaign contributions to people that will then turn around and give you government contracts to restrict the liberties of human beings. And the story that I read about this woman feeling like they lied to her lawyer and said if she had only said she could pay for her own flight home, but they were keeping her, and every day they were keeping her, they were getting more money from American taxpayers. This wasn't a system designed for justice. This isn't a system that's designed for the rights of human beings in our country. This is a system that has every day an incentive to deny the liberty, to hold people It's wrong. It's wrong. It's broken. And with a president that doesn't care about these things, that is giving greater latitude so that more stories like the Canadian woman's story, it's stunning. I want to keep moving, though, and I just want to talk about children and the way this system is extended to children. Last week, the government canceled a contract to provide legal services to 26,000 unaccompanied immigrant children. Remember what Anton Scalia said about due process in his strict interpretations of the literal writings of our founders. But 26,000 unaccompanied migrant children no longer have legal representation. We started on that idea. We started on the idea. The 5th and the 14th Amendment, no one shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process. And our country is now rolled back. Trump got rid of a policy that prevented ICE from arresting kids at schools and people from their places of worship. Now every day, families face the impossible choice of whether to send a kid to school and risk permanent separation from their families. Here's a story from New Jersey. And I quote, "Recently when I was home in Newark, New Jersey, a woman in my neighborhood came up to me to tell me a heartbreaking story. One morning, she was on her way to walk to school, the mom of another child's children. I won't make this anonymous. One of my closest friends, she's like a sister to me. She lives in the Ironbound in Newark. And it was very emotional because her neighbors were so terrified that they came to her and asked her to walk their children to school. They're American children. There are so many teachers and school administrators who are speaking out now that they've been ordered that they must allow ICE to enter their schools. Trump has plans to revoke temporary protected status protection for hundreds of thousands of people from various countries, from Venezuela to Haiti, paving the way for those deportations. We know who they are. He's done this despite the State Department maintaining a level 4 do not travel warning to Haiti and Venezuela due to widespread violence, danger, sexual assaults, kidnappings, and more. He claims that he's tough on crime because he wants to go after child sexual abusers, but when you're sending children running into schools and churches and sending them back to environments that are known for sexual assaults on young girls. The Department of Justice Office of Civil Rights recently dropped its case it had filed against Southwest Key, the nation's largest provider of housing for migrant children, in which the DOJ alleged sexual abuse and neglect perpetrated against undocumented children in federal custody. It was a case that the DOJ brought against this company who houses migrant children because of alleged sexual abuse. And what did our government do under Trump? They dropped charges. They dropped charges. Why? Why? Children being sexually assaulted? It's not worth an investigation? Is it because the administration thinks that pursuing the lawsuit and holding perpetrators accountable will somehow interfere with their immigration agenda? They literally let alleged sex abusers go free with no explanation. The hypocrisy. The family detentions are restarted. They failed in the past to meet basic child welfare standards and exposed children to trauma. The President's own Department of Homeland Security concluded in 2018 that family detention centers posed a high risk of harm to children and families, and despite his own Department of Homeland Security back in 2018 saying that, they've restarted it. One of the points I want to make is crime. I was a mayor. The number one issue my residents were concerned about was fighting crime, fighting crime, fighting crime. I went back to New York recently for a horrible, tragic death of a police officer by a 14-year-old with a ghost gun. It was horrible. To send off hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of police officers from all over our state, from New York. This police officer was murdered by a 14-year-old. I still pray for their family, his mom. And as I was standing there looking at this parade of police officers who were waiting for the casket, I had police officers come to me and complain that they're having harder and harder time in New Jersey solving crimes because now victims of crime, victims of sexual assault, victims of robbery who happen to be undocumented are afraid to go and talk to local police because of all this rhetoric that's creating the fear that they'll be turned over to ICE. Imagine in our country there are people out there that are sexually assaulting people but are getting away with it because they're targeting immigrants. And if you don't think that hurts American safety, you're wrong. Afraid to go and talk to police officers to report crimes. They're subverting people's constitutional rights. They're incarcerating people in foreign prisons who have no criminal records. They're harms to children. We've talked about all of this, but diverting law enforcement resources away from investigating national security threats, terrorism, drug smuggling, human trafficking, illegal arms exports, financial crimes, and sex crimes, taking law enforcement away from investigating those crimes and forcing all federal law enforcement agencies to enforce low-level immigration crimes, or I should say undocumented people with no criminal activity beyond their being in our country. Reuters wrote about this misguided redirection of federal resources. I read their article. Federal agents who usually hunt down child abusers are now cracking down on immigrants who live in the U.S. illegally. Homeland Security investigators who specialize in money laundering are raiding restaurants and other small businesses looking for immigrants who aren't authorized to work. Agents who pursue drug traffickers and tax fraud are being reassigned to enforce immigration law. As U.S. President Donald Trump pledges to deport millions and millions of quote-unquote criminal aliens, thousands of federal law enforcement officers from multiple federal agencies are being enlisted to take on new work as immigration enforcers, pulling crime-fighting resources away from other areas, from drug trafficking and terrorism and sexual abuse and fraud. The account of Trump's push to reorganize federal law enforcement, the most significant since September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks, is based on interviews with more than 20 current and former federal agents, attorneys, and other federal officials. Most had firsthand knowledge of the changes. Nearly all spoke on the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss. In quotes, I do not recall ever seeing this wide spectrum of a federal government resources all being turned towards immigration enforcement, said Teresa Cardinal Brown, a former Homeland Security officer who has been served in both Republican and Democratic administrations. When you're telling agencies to stop what you're doing and do this now, whatever else they were doing takes a back seat. In response to questions from Reuters, Homeland Security Assistant Secretary Tricia McLaughlin said the U.S. government is mobilizing federal and state law enforcement to find, arrest, and deport illegal aliens. The FBI declined to respond to questions about its staffing. In a statement, the FBI said it is protecting the U.S. from many threats. The Trump administration has offered no comprehensive accounting of the revamp, but it echoes the aftermath of 2001 attacks when Congress created the Department of Homeland Security and pulled together 169,000 federal employees from other agencies and refocused the FBI on battling terrorism. Trump's hardline approach to deporting immigrants has intensified America's already stark partisan divide. The U.S. Senate's number 2 Democrat, Dick Durbin, describes the crackdown as wasteful, misguided diversion of resources. It's making Americans less safe by drawing agents and officials away from fighting corporate fraud, terrorism, child sexual exploitation, and other crimes. The focus of immigration is drawing significant resources from other crime-fighting departments, according to the more 20 sources who spoke. Until January, pursuing immigrants living in the country illegally was largely the part of 2 agencies: ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and Customs and Border Protection, with a combined staff of 80,000 other departments spent on crime. In Detroit, where immigration prosecutions have been rare, the number of people charged with immigration offenses rose from 2 in February to 19 last month. Case managements from the Justice Department show that fewer than 1% of the cases brought by prosecutors by the DEA and ATF over the past decade involved allegations that someone had violated immigration law. Since January, however, DEA agents have been ordered to reopen cases involving arrests up to 5 years old where prosecutors had declined to bring charges. As Trump and billionaire Elon Musk flash the size of the federal government bureaucracy, jobs that deal with immigration enforcement appear largely exempt. In January 31st email to ICE employees, a human resource official told them they wouldn't be eligible for retirement buyouts offered to some 2.3 million federal workers. All ICE positions are excluded, they said recently in a previously underreported email. The Constitution states only one thing twice. Both the 5th and the 14th Amendments say that no one, not no citizen, no one shall be deprived of liberty or property without due process of law, and yet this president is disappearing people. And as we documented here, disappearing the wrong people. As we documented here, detaining unjustly Americans, separating families, all while pushing his agenda and doing things that the values of people on both sides of this aisle don't believe in, like stopping the investigation of children for alleged sexual molestation. This is wrong. And I sat down with some of the advocates who were telling me and who were trying to fight to stop the law from being broken, and they scared me, Dick Durbin. Because they said what I said on this floor: if someone is willing to violate the Constitution for some, it endangers the constitutional rights for us all. Do not think this is, those people. If they are violating rights of some, it is a threat to the rights of all. I am standing here because of a national crisis that is growing. We talked about Social Security. We talked about health care. We talked about education. This is a crisis for us.